Dispatch all biters. My quest to free the country of zombies. By Mystic Alchemist. Copyright 2020 Mystic Alchemist. All rights reserved. Written in Australian English. This book is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places and incidents are either a product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual people living or dead, events or locales is purely coincidental. Chapter 22. Port. Not long after leaving the traitor's house we passed another bus. While the eastern driver saw us, he made no effort to do anything. "He'll report our location," our bus driver said. "We should blast them," Geraldine said, "they're all enemy or traitors." "We're getting low on ammunition," I said. "It won't use much, they're a soft target." "I'll stop and tell those behind to shoot while they pass," I said, slowing to let the others stop close. Everyone loved the idea and promised to only shoot a little bit. "We'll see." We did encounter another bus, foreign driver again. I heard the shooting and a squeal and crash. "One less," Geraldine said. The port was toward the north where we hadn't explored before, our bus driver guiding me to the main port entrance. I stopped as soon as I saw it. High security fence, better than at the airport and nuclear plant. Wide access road, 2 lanes both ways and a blockhouse between the lanes. Boom gates too, but not a single pole. These looked very substantial, made to stop a truck bursting through. No armed guards in sight, but until we got very close there was no way to see how many were in the blockhouse. From this spot, there was no sight of any boats, just row upon row of metal-clad buildings. "Left or right?" I said, pointing to the fence. "Left." The fence followed the roadside, houses on one side, port fence the other. As we drove I caught glimpses of boats, but mainly it was more metal-clad buildings, as though they'd all been stamped from a mold, I guessed from the time of the last war. I did see a locked access gate that had potential, but we kept driving, knowing we must eventually end up on the beach and should be better able to see what boats were there. Nearly dark when we found the beach, only it wasn't a beach, rather a pile of rocks capped with concrete and a high wire fence that continued a good way out into the water. They weren't making it easy for people to break in. At least we could see much more of the port from here, and there were fewer boats than I expected. Closest was a cargo boat, completely dark and unattended. Then another active freight boat, bright with lights and people and cranes moving freight. A bright oasis in the pool of growing dark that was the rest of the port. Much further along was the real prize, a tanker flooded with light and people. Large black hoses snaking up and around metal arms to the shore. A most perfect target, if we could find a way of getting it. "That would make a big explosion," Geraldine said, others murmuring agreement around. "There's a lot of people around it," I said, seeing no real way to successfully drive in and blast the boat. "Someone would need to sneak up and set it alight," our bus driver said. "I'd like to try," one of the other drivers said. "Walk up and blend in with the other workers until I found a way to light it up." "Risky," I said. "Fun," Geraldine said. "We've still got some of those flares," another said. "Flares would be great. Maybe slice one of those hoses and ignite the spilled fuel." There was no stopping them now. Soon 2 had volunteered themselves for the task and others were getting the flares ready, wrapping them in plastic in case they had to swim. "We'll need something big and sharp to slice through those hoses," one volunteer said, looking at Geraldine's side. "Providing you bring it back," she said as she handed her machete over. "How about we unlock that gate we passed before?" I said, "it might be closer to walk." "You'll need a distraction too," our bus driver said, "maybe if we attack the gate when you get close." Complete agreement. We had a plan. I was volunteered to take the 2 making the attack to the gate and open it for them and then to come back where we were by the water, as it gave a sight of the whole site and we would know when we needed to trigger the distraction. Flares wrapped in a plastic bag and machete and knives ready, I axed the gate lock and the 2 slipped through, soon disappearing into the darkness. Our previous efforts with the power system had still not been repaired. Back near the water everyone was fighting to see what was happening. Maybe this wasn't the greatest plan because there was no real way for us to see our men in the dark. After a while and nothing happening, I suggested we should start the diversion. They should be near the tanker by the time we made something happen. My plan had been to only shoot up the guard post. All our trucks in a line, we made toward the solid brick building, the heavy boom gates all down and definitely not able to be crashed through. I'd expected to see more of the inside of the guard post as we got close, but saw nothing other than a tiny glass window up high. Nothing else to shoot, and no one coming out to ask our business. It was then I thought that we'd been fooled. There was no guards, they didn't have the manpower for that. I took the risk and drove right up to the boom gate, the other two in the back aiming the machine guns. With axe in hand I was through the truck door and sprinting for the doorway in the darkened blockhouse. No one at all inside, only a panel of buttons to work the gates, but with no power those boom gates weren't going to lift. I need help to lift the gate, I yelled back. 5 men going to help and we did get the gate to rise up with one man finding a metal pin on the gate's support pole that would hold the gate up. We still hadn't created a diversion, so I led the rest in driving into the port grounds, looking for something to shoot. Total darkness now, and no sign of anyone as I drove in the very middle of the main road. Left, our bus driver yelled from the back. I followed his directions and could see it too, the brightly lit freight boat almost directly ahead. That would be a great diversion. High-pitched foreign yelling ahead when the boat crew saw us approaching, but our guns couldn't shoot straight ahead, so I kept on waiting to find a good place to turn side on. That didn't happen until we were nearly up to the boat, and when I turned, I had 4 more all spraying bullets over the eastern people as they ran to find some escape. It was over in seconds. No movement at all from around us and no chatter either. The tanker, I yelled, making ready to move around the abandoned loaders and freight scattered in our way. The fire started before we got to the tanker. Bright orange flames illuminating dark black smoke. People running to escape and us with no way to see where our men were. We couldn't shoot. All I could do was to drive closer and hope we would identify our men. "There's my knife," Geraldine yelled. It took me more time, but I did see our 2 men, the others must have too because some started shooting away from them to slow the enemy getting close to us. Our men retrieved, we made a fast run out of the port, in time to be well away when the explosion happened. I saw the fireball in the rear-view mirror. Geraldine was cheering, she had a better view. I stopped quite quickly so everyone could look back at the carnage. "We should check the airport again," Geraldine said, as though this explosion hadn't been enough. "We should stop for a good sleep," I said, "we all need a rest." I won, and looked for a motel to commandeer. This time I didn't bother looking for keys, at least there were internal padbolts that held the doors shut. I was absolutely beat, and even though Geraldine the Brave wanted to relive the boat attack, I was asleep before she got up to the explosion. Most of the others were out talking when I finally got up. I'd really needed that sleep, and felt I was back in charge of the situation until Kathy greeted me. "More death and destruction today," she said. "I don't think there is much more to do," I said, "I think we nearly control this city." "And what are you going to do with what's left of it?" "Finish eliminating the invaders and find any more of our people we can find." "And what then?" "Expand until we have the whole country back." All others but Nigel nodding agreement. But the trouble was Kathy was right, we were in a dead-end situation that I needed to work out a solution to quickly. "For now, let's find their control center," I said. "Airport," our bus driver said, "most of those keys were labeled airport something." "Airport then," I said. We all heard the plane land. Still miles away, but the sound was unmistakable, having to land in daylight since we'd killed all the lights. Not a lot of ammunition, but enough to stop it taking off again. We aimed for the gate we'd used before, and when I led through that gate the sight was not what I expected. Not unloading but loading. Right at the end of the runway, a line of buses and lines of Eastern people waiting to board. I stopped for the shooters to get on the back and make their guns ready. Just stop the plane leaving and make a few of the others undead, we need to save ammunition. The people by the plane tried to scatter when we sped toward them, but there was really nowhere for them to go. I led the trucks to circle the scene. Plane, buses and people, our guns shooting as we drove. One loop and the job was done, and I was driving back toward the gate we'd left from, stopping there for the shooters to get back into the cabs and for me to tell our next target. "You've won the battle," Kathy yelled, "hope you're pleased with yourself." The bit she didn't say was the important bit. We'd won the battle but not the war, and if I was fighting that war my next move would be immediate and massive. That sleep had cleared my thinking and there was no doubt what our next move had to be. "Follow me, and we're moving fast," I yelled, my truck driving off before most were really ready. "Out of this city as quick as we can," I said to our bus driver who had the map. "Maybe the highway we came in originally. We've got maybe half an hour to be miles away from here. Shouldn't we be securing their base here? That's what they'll be counting on. They can't let us win. They'll do everything in their power to eliminate our threat." "Missiles," Geraldine said. "Possibly. Maybe bombs too." I saw our bus driver realize, and he attacked the map with even more vigor, calling out turns to keep us heading east away from the coast. Minutes go slow when you're watching but fast when you're trying to race through a city, even though it was empty. 30 minutes had us just at the city edge and on the main highway east. I had the truck as fast as I dared, the rest keeping up behind us. I'd been trying to remember how to calculate safe distances but the mental effort was beyond what I could manage now. 25 miles kept coming to my thoughts, so I asked, "Tell me when we're 25 miles away." "That enough," our bus driver said. "Minimum," I said. "I'm guessing we're about 15 now." "Trouble behind," Geraldine yelled. I looked and only saw 3 trucks. I had to stop and turn. They stopped, one driver yelled as I passed them the wrong way. "Keep going, I'll find them," I said, speeding back toward the city. Only out of fuel. I had them get on the back of our truck while Geraldine and our man took their gun. Precious time lost, and I tried to make it up as best as I could. I saw the light first. Even though it was a clear bright sunny day, this light was brighter. I tried to work out the speed of the sound but another and another bright burst interfered with my mental calculations. "Big explosions," Geraldine yelled, "bigger than we've made before." 5, our man said, "They wanted to make sure we were dead." The blast pushed the truck faster and the boom rolled on and on. "That's the best ever explosion," Geraldine said, "lucky we weren't close." I felt we were still too close and I'm sure Kathy and Nigel in the back felt the same as they were cowering down in the tray hanging on as best they could. "The fallout is heading northish, should miss us," our bus driver said. I kept on driving. The others had stopped over a crest and they had walked back to the top of the rise to watch the sight ahead. We all came to join them, trying to make out the 5 different plumes, but 3 seemed to have melded together. "We're still winning," I said to Kathy before she had a chance to go at me anymore. "How does destroying Fair Beach count as winning? We're still alive, we won the battle, and by their actions our enemy has brought the ire of the rest of the world. I wouldn't be surprised if right now their cities are being bombed, so in the end we'll win the war too. That's if that happens." But her tone wasn't so sure now. "Now we need to make more miles and decide where to go next." "Everglade," Kathy said, "Nigel and me want to go home." Most of the others came from there too and they were all nodding. "We should be there by tonight, but we'll all need a fuel stop soon."